Thank you for joining us. One of the biggest national disputes recently is over gun control, following a number of horrific crimes. Gun control advocates believe these crimes have altered the political climate on guns in their favor, hoping to extend federal background checks to almost all gun sales and ban the sale on some semi-automatic rifles and some ammunition. On the other hand, people who say they do have Second Amendment rights to own firearms, they believe they should not be punished for those people who do not use them responsibly. This is an explosive subject, if you'll excuse the term, and not one to be taken lightly, especially in Israel, surviving and thriving in a rough neighborhood. Our guests today are Moti Adika from Israel and Terry Worrow, President of Total Security, following these messages.
My grandparents escaped the Nazis in Vienna and went to Shanghai. So did 16,000 other German and Austrian Jews. This book is my attempt to tell their story, or really to let them tell their own stories. It's a book of oral history based on a dozen interviews that I've done with former refugees who've told their whole story, from deciding to go to Shanghai, taking a boat, that's what this picture is here, getting off the boat in Shanghai, creating a new life in Shanghai, surviving the war, and then eventually coming to the United States. The book is available online from Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can order it at your bookstores. If I may say so, I found these stories fascinating to listen to when I first heard the refugees talk. I found it fascinating to put them together in this book. I think you'll find this book interesting to read and revealing about Jewish life in Shanghai.
With governments around the world focusing attention and budgets on stopping terrorist and criminal activities, one Israeli company is making strides using a sophisticated eye you might have seen at the side of the road. Through image processing algorithms and artificial intelligence technologies, High-Tech Solutions Israel has developed cutting-edge security systems for monitoring vehicles and cargo.
We solve a lot of problems of growing transportation needs, security needs that can only be solved through an automated process.
This is how the technology works. At seaports, cameras identify and track containers as they're uploaded and offloaded by cranes and make their way through truck gates and railway systems. They cross-check information at the source and destinations of the cargo. On toll roads and at private businesses, cameras capture license plate numbers and feed information on the make, model, and color of the vehicle, looking for identity discrepancies. At automated parking lots and toll roads like the new Carmel tunnels in Haifa, these systems mean efficiency.
The technology itself enables us to be sure and certain that we are identifying and charging the correct vehicles.
But the technology's most important and crucial uses are at seaports and shipping warehouses. Here, they help in the war against drugs, weapons, and human trafficking. 40 countries around the world, including the US, the UK, Hong Kong, and South Africa, use this technology. In Israel, HTS systems have been in place for several years at the Ben Gurion International Airport.
It would be hard to conceive of a world 10 years from now where they're not using our technology.
In 2012, HTS is focusing its attention on markets such as Brazil, Singapore, and Australia. as this technology continues to make the world a safer, if more closely monitored, place.
With us now is Terry Worrow. It's a pleasure having you on the show finally.
My pleasure.
We've talked about this for ages, and here we are finally doing it. Terry, I was born in London, England. You were born in England also, and here we are in Florida doing this interview. And you're actually very much involved in security, home security, business security. Tell us a little bit about your industry today.
Our industry today has grown in leaps and bounds. We've gone away from the traditional small alarm systems to very, very more sophisticated systems. There's more video, there's more internet access, but there's still a big market for the traditional, regular alarm systems. So it's a business that's evolved, and pretty much things are keeping pace with technology.
You know, what's interesting is cameras are just about everywhere, security cameras. What comes to mind is in the London bombings, the terrorist bombings by Muslim terrorists, within days they were able to identify the faces of the terrorists among millions of faces of people walking around London due to the presence of so many security cameras. So whether people like the question of privacy or not, it's there, Big Brother is there, and being put to good use, I would say.
I believe you're absolutely correct, because I don't think anybody likes the idea of being monitored 24 hours a day. But in public spaces, the defense over there is the fact that we have to do something. And this seems to be the most economical way of doing it. And you have hard copies of things going on, so there is proof. I think most people that visit or live in London have a feeling of added security. It's a system that works. It has been working, and I believe that the authorities, although they have this issue of trying to get it across to the public, I think Britain has become more accepted to that, more so than the United States. Good or bad, I think it's a road that we're going to have to go down. And if the cameras are used to defend the country and something good comes of it after an incident, I think you're just building up a plus point on one side to say, well, we have to do this, and it is a good idea. And I think that's where we're heading.
Absolutely. And right here in the United States, cameras again helped identify the Boston terrorists very promptly.
Right.
Let's talk about businesses in general. Your company focuses on security for businesses more so than residences. Tell us about both.
We're primarily in the corporate market, and we tend to do card access systems incorporating video. On the residential side, they're more of a basic system, still sophisticated, but we can do more in the modern era with equipment wirelessly and remotely. So although they're two separate entities, commercial and residential, the manufacturers of equipment have managed to build panels and controls and certain devices that work in both applications. So you can design a system that is explicitly designed for commercial use and one for residential, but they're using technologies from both.
What's interesting, I hear, is that individuals can go on vacation and they can actually monitor their business or home on their iPhones, actually.
This is correct. If you have the certain type of equipment with DVR recorders, that is a distinct possibility. Pretty much anything can be done these days.
So what is popular? What are people actually utilizing?
Most people, when it comes to cameras, are traditional DVR with motion sensor cameras, which is one of the better ways to go, because the cameras are only recording when there's actual movement. Whereas back in the old days, it would be running 24 hours a day and you had a tape. So if there's an incident, you can go straight to the DVR, you can pick up the time and date of the incident and just replay it and check it out, and then you can burn it to a disk, and you can give that to the authorities if you need to get them some information. So from that aspect, the technology is very exciting. It's something that the alarm company can do, and it's something that the homeowner can do.
I understand you not only provide security systems for businesses, but actually also for schools, synagogues and so forth. Tell us about that.
We've, over the course of the last 20 years, we have installed systems in certain synagogues and certain religious schools to great effect. Obviously cost is a big issue with those kind of organizations. So we tend to put in the basic system to begin with, and as funds become available, we're able to build on the existing system. So although the certain parts of the system may be 5 or 6 years old, we can always add equipment to the basic system, and they can build on that. As issues develop or problems develop, we can kind of move with what they wish.
Something many of your viewers would like to know is, how on earth did you get into this business?
I got in this business through my father. He was in this business in the early 60s. So I just kind of decided, this looks like fun, I'll do that, and I've never looked back.
Interesting. And that was actually in England, I understand.
That was in London, yes.
Yes. Considering people's concern regarding security and so forth, there is the issue of gun control and people thinking that they need to defend themselves with weapons. But frankly, if you have a secure business and home, you can actually prevent intruders from wanting to attack your property or yourself. That also is a first step, I would say.
It is a first line of defense. It's a first line of defense. One of the issues that I find is that people do not use their system while they're at home. So the stories of, I heard a noise and I jumped from my gun and I went out and I encountered an intruder. A lot of that could be avoided if you had an alarm system that was designed to be used at night. So you could walk around inside the house, but the windows and perimeter doors would be protected. And that's the kind of system we try and encourage. Just to have a trap protection, which would be motion sensors and a couple of doors that can only really be used when the house is empty, it kind of, in a way, defeats the purpose of the security system. So you're protecting the home when there's nobody there, but if you protect the perimeter, you can protect the home and the people that are inside the home 24 hours a day. And everybody in the family is just educated to use the system all the time. If you make a mistake and you trip the system, everybody has a code number that can cancel the police coming. So that's not an issue. So I think people shortchange themselves by not installing the correct system for their particular environment.
Interesting point. People spend so much money on fun things, vacations, gadgets, devices, but really they neglect to protect what is most precious, their property and, of course, their loved ones.
This is true. More and more these days with new homes that are coming out of the ground, security systems are built in. And it might be an optional extra to put the actual devices on the end of the wires that were installed when the house was built. People also forget that if they install a burglar alarm system and they have a fire alarm that's hooked up to the security system panel, you can get a break on your insurance, which may only be 10%, but it's something, and it goes towards the monitoring of the system.
And of course, all adds up.
All adds up.
And peace of mind as well.
Peace of mind. When you leave the house and you've got children in the house and they can use the alarm system, you can always phone in and make sure that they've turned the alarm on. And when we come home, we're going to turn it off. It's just a routine. If you can teach people at a young age, the older they get, it's just a matter of, this is what we've always done, and this just like leaving the house and we always turn the alarm on. There's no extra step.
Well, this has been very interesting, Terry, and a pleasure having you on the show.
My pleasure.
We have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
When new technology comes around.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'll be right back. With us now is Moti Adika. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, my friend.
Nice meeting you, Richard.
So earlier in our program, we had an interview with a gentleman involved in security, alarm systems, and how technology has improved. But of course, you're in another area here. You're in firearms. And it's a controversial subject. Some people complain that the Second Amendment is not a good idea. People should not have the right to bear arms and so forth. But others say, hey, they can't be held responsible for what irresponsible people do. What are your thoughts on that?
I can tell you that the Second Amendment in the U.S. Constitution is one of the best things that ever happened to this country, and that's where we are today because of the Second Amendment. If you will go around the world and look at places that don't have the right of the citizen to bear arms, you will find totalitarian government who control the population and only criminals running around with firearms. In the United States, the law-abiding citizens are not the ones that committing crimes with the firearms. I think that we need to concentrate on existing laws and that we already have in this country and go and fight crimes. The problem that we have is not the type of firearms. It's not the type of magazines or how many rounds are in the magazines that committing crimes. It is the criminals.
I fully understand your points, and I also see that behind you, not only are you from Israel, but there's an Uzi on your rack right there. In fact, it brings to mind how in the 67 war, when Jerusalem was liberated, it was the 55th Division, Chatiba 55 paratroops, that liberated Jerusalem with 9mm Uzi submachine guns. What nostalgic thoughts does that piece of history bring to you?
It brings a lot of memories. I used to have one myself when I served in Israeli militaries in the Sinai Desert. However, let me correct you, Richard. This is not a submachine gun, what you see on the wall. This is the civilian version of the Uzi, and this is a semi-automatic rifle that is fit and approved by the ATF for civilian use in the United States.
Well, I realize that now, and my question to you is, tell us a little bit more about your role opening a business here in Coral Springs, Florida. What exactly do you do with regard to training and safety and so forth?
I was always fascinated with firearms, and I like them. I'm a collector myself of different rifles and pistols. As an NRA certified instructor in 5 disciplines, I am able to teach civilians the use of handguns, shotguns, rifles, refuse to be victim courses, and they will feel comfortable on using firearms. Also consult them with choosing of the right type of firearm for the personal defense inside or outside the home. I think that people should have that right. If people don't have that right, only the criminals will be able to have guns.
Moti, before we conclude, I'd like to ask you to share with our audience a little bit about your background. You were born in Israel and you came to the United States a while ago. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Born and raised in Israel, served in the military, and I came in here in 1972. And I opened several businesses. This is one of my ventures recently. It's almost a year old. And my son and I opened this gun shop, educating people. We are different than most gun shops around. We will spend time with our customers, educating them the right type of firearm to choose from. We teach fundamentals.
Do you get a lot of criticism for actually being a proponent of the firearms industry?
The criticism that the firearm industry is getting from liberal media and some others. The reason for that, I think, is lack of knowledge and experience and the fear of.
But you can understand, of course, you can understand that with all of the tragedies, these terrible crimes that have taken place with school children being killed, you certainly can understand how quite a few people feel that there need to be greater controls from their point of view.
Let me take this moment and give all my condolences to all of those, especially children. Firearm was used by people who was not qualified and was not supposed to have those firearms. However, we don't need additional laws. We need to concentrate on enforcing our existing laws and fight those criminals that committing those crime and using firearms in the process.
Well, I'm sure most people will understand and will agree with you. I want to wish you the very best. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Richard.
I'll be right back.
This brings us to the end of our special show for today. I'm MASA Peritz. Thank you for being with us.